In the second quarter of a Wednesday night game in Indianapolis, a WNBA veteran drove her fist into Caitlin Clark's throat, stepped over her body, and kept walking. No whistle blew. That's not even the strangest part of this story. The strangest part is everything sitting around it. A pattern of hard fouls that only get punished after the fact. A commissioner whose own words about Caitlin Clark and race lit up national headlines. A veteran journalist with decades of credibility whose reporting the league still hasn't been able to explain away. And a set of financial numbers so large that once you see them, every one of these decisions starts to look a lot stranger. Stay with me, because the last part of this video changes how you'll look at everything that came before it. Before we get into it, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is still moving and there could be a new development within days. Who we're actually talking about. Before we get into what's gone wrong, you need to understand exactly how big what went right actually was, because it's what makes everything else in this video so hard to explain. Caitlin Clark left the University of Iowa with 3,951 career points, the all-time NCAA Division I scoring record for any gender, men's or women's basketball combined. Her final college championship game against South Carolina drew an average of 18.7 million viewers, the most watched women's basketball game, college or professional, in history, and one of the most watched basketball broadcasts of any kind that year. Then came draft night, the 2024 WNBA draft. The night the Indiana Fever selected her first overall, drew 2.45 million viewers on ESPN, peaking above 3 million. The previous record for a WNBA draft had stood for 20 years at 601,000 viewers, set the night Diana Taurasi got picked by Phoenix. Clark didn't break that record. She more than quadrupled it. That's the player at the center of everything you're about to hear. Not a promising rookie the league was cautiously hoping might pan out. The single biggest television draw women's basketball had ever produced, before she'd played a single professional minute. The punch nobody called it happened with 6 minutes and 52 seconds left in the second quarter. The Phoenix Mercury were hosting the Indiana Fever, a physical, chippy matchup that had already produced 6 technical fouls 2 nights earlier. Caitlin Clark drove into the lane, went down after contact with Mercury guard Lexi Held, and found herself on the floor in a scramble for a loose ball with 3 Mercury defenders around her. As Alyssa Thomas fought for the ball, she drove her closed fist into Clark's throat. Then she got up and stepped over Clark's body on her way back down the floor. No foul was called. Play continued. The Mercury went on to win the game 111-109. It wasn't until the next day, when the league office sat down and reviewed the tape, that anyone in an official capacity acknowledged what the entire arena had just watched live. The WNBA assessed Alyssa Thomas a flagrant foul 2, the most serious category the league has, and suspended her for 1 game. In its statement, the league said Thomas had committed what it called a non-basketball act. Fever head coach Stephanie White didn't hide how she felt after the game. She called the no call absolutely egregious, and she wasn't just talking about the throat strike. Less than a minute later, Clark was fouled again by another Phoenix player, a hit White wanted upgraded to a flagrant as well. The officials called it a common foul instead. Clark finished the night with 19 points and 8 assists in only 20 minutes before leaving in the third quarter with a back issue that had been bothering her since an earlier fall. A pattern, not an incident. Here's where this stops being a single ugly play and starts being something you have to pay attention to. This was not the first time the league has had to go back after the final buzzer and upgrade a foul against Caitlin Clark that officials missed live. During her rookie season in 2024, Chicago Sky guard Chennedy checked Clark hard to the floor. In real time, officials called it a common foul. On review, the league upgraded it to a flagrant. Carter's response afterward was that it was simply a basketball play. Later that same rookie season, Angel Reese caught Clark in the head on a block attempt. Clark hit the floor hard again. Officials didn't call anything live. On review, the league upgraded that one to a flagrant as well. So by the time Alyssa Thomas put her fist into Clark's throat in the summer of 2026, this was the third time in 3 seasons that the league office had to step in after the fact and correct what its own officiating crews missed in real time on plays involving the same player. 3 incidents, 3 different opponents, 3 different seasons, 0 flagged live. All 3 upgraded only after somebody in a league office, hours later, sat down and watched the replay. You can call that a coincidence once, maybe even twice. By the 3rd time, the question stops being whether officiating has a Caitlin Clark problem and starts being why nobody in a striped shirt, in real time, in front of a sold-out arena and a national television audience, seems able to catch it. And Alyssa Thomas herself isn't a stranger to this exact type of play. A year before the Clark incident, footage surfaced of Thomas striking Washington Mystics rookie Kiki Iriafen in the throat during a jump ball, a play that did draw a flagrant call in real time. Go back further to Angel Reese's own rookie season in 2024, and there's video of Thomas pulling Reese into a chokeslam to the floor, an incident that got Thomas ejected. So the throat strike on Clark wasn't an isolated lapse from a player with a clean record. It was, by the video evidence alone, at least the 3rd time in 2 years Thomas had gone at a rookie's neck or throat in a live game. The first 2 times, officials saw it and called it. The one time it happened to Caitlin Clark in front of the league's largest audience, nobody did. The investigation that found nothing. Now rewind further back to the very first weekend of the 2025 season, because this is where things get genuinely complicated and where you need to pay close attention, because the popular version of this story that circulates online isn't quite what actually happened. May 17th, 2025, season opener. The Indiana Fever hosting the Chicago Sky, Caitlin Clark against Angel Reese, the most talked about rivalry in the sport at that point. Indiana won big, 93-58. In the 3rd quarter, Clark fouled Reese hard on a drive. The officials called a common foul. On review, the league upgraded it to a flagrant, citing the windup, the impact, and the follow-through as more than a legitimate basketball play. Reese and Clark had words. Fever forward Aaliyah Boston stepped in to separate them. Both Reese and Boston picked up technical fouls. Clark, on that same night, recorded her 3rd career triple-double, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. That triple-double tied her with Candace Parker's career total, a mark it took Parker 16 seasons to reach. Clark matched it before the end of her 2nd year in the league, but the headline that weekend wasn't the basketball. Reports surfaced that fans inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse had directed racist remarks at Angel Reese during the game. The WNBA announced it was opening a formal investigation, releasing a statement condemning racism, hate, and discrimination in all forms. Caitlin Clark was asked about it directly at practice a few days later. She said the arena had been too loud for her to hear anything herself, but that she trusted the league and supported the investigation taking place. 2 weeks after it opened, the league closed the investigation. Its conclusion, after reviewing audio and video from the broadcast and gathering information from fans, team staff, and arena personnel, the WNBA said it could not substantiate the claims. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Indiana Senator Jim Banks publicly demanded that the WNBA, Clark, and Reese all apologize to Fever fans, calling the entire episode a case of the league embarrassing itself over accusations that were never proven. Here's the honest, uncomfortable truth about this specific chapter. nobody outside that arena knows for certain what was or wasn't said that night. The league investigated, using real evidence, and came back with an unsubstantiated finding. That's not a cover-up. That's what an actual, functioning investigation looks like, whatever conclusion it reaches. But it's also not nothing, because it shows you exactly how fast any story involving Caitlin Clark, race, and officiating can spiral into a national controversy, with a United States Senator weighing in within the space of 2 weeks. The commissioner's own words. If you want to understand why so many people are primed to see a pattern here, you have to go back to the person running the league herself. After Clark's rookie season ended with a playoff loss to the Connecticut Sun, a game that drew 2.5 million viewers on ESPN and set a new record for the largest cable audience in WNBA history, peaking near 3.5 million, WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert gave an interview addressing the surge in interest. Her explanation connected the ratings boom, in part, to the rivalry between Clark and Reese, in terms that a number of reporters and players read as framing it along racial lines, Clark as the white player, Reese as the black player, essentially a white versus black storyline driving the numbers. The reaction was immediate. WNBA Players Association Executive Director Terry Carmichael Jackson pushed back publicly, acknowledging that yes, Clark and Reese had absolutely driven a surge in interest, while insisting that the rivalry between two young stars should never need to be defined by race to be compelling. Think about what actually happened here. The commissioner of the league, the person whose entire job is stewarding the sport's public image, was the one who introduced a racial framing into the story, not a fan, not a pundit, not a leaked memo. On the record, in her own words. That single moment did more to plant the idea that this league has an uneasy relationship with its own biggest storyline than almost anything else that's happened since. The book. The league can't explain away. And then came the book. Christine Brennan has covered sports for USA Today for decades. She is not a message board rumor, and she is not a hot take artist. She's the kind of reporter who gets her calls returned inside professional sports organizations. In 2025, she published a book on Clark's rise, titled On Her Game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports, built on months of access and reporting inside Clark's world. What made the book newsworthy wasn't just the access, it was what Brennan started saying publicly while promoting it. In interview after interview, she has criticized Commissioner Engelbert directly, describing what she calls a genuine difficulty on Engelbert's part, just talking about Caitlin Clark. Brennan's specific complaint is that when reporters ask Engelbert about Clark, the commissioner will frequently pivot to naming other players unprompted, even when nobody asked about them. Brennan's underlying argument is a business argument, not a personal one. No company in any other industry, she's said, undersells the single asset responsible for reshaping its entire commercial future. She's called it Capitalism 101. You have a generational talent driving unprecedented growth. You run with it. Instead, she argues, the league keeps finding ways to spread the spotlight thin at exactly the moments it should be concentrating it. Brennan didn't stop there. After the Alyssa Thomas throat punch incident, she wrote a column that went even further, accusing the WNBA and some of its players of showing what she bluntly called unabashed jealousy, disdain, and outright hatred toward the very thing that transformed their league. She pointed to the modest one-game suspension and the roughly $1,000 fine handed to a player earning well over $1 million a year, and argued that the punishment barely addressed the problem at all. It's worth being honest here about Brennan herself, too, because she is not a neutral figure in this story, and treating her as one would be misleading you. Brennan has clashed publicly with WNBA players over exactly this kind of coverage. During the 2024 playoffs, she pressed Connecticut's Sun guard Dijonai Carrington directly about a play where Carrington's finger struck Clark near the eye, a question Carrington and several other players felt was framed unfairly, reigniting tension between Brennan and parts of the league's locker rooms that has never fully gone away. She is simultaneously one of Clark's loudest defenders and one of the player's most criticized reporters. Keep both of those facts in your head as you weigh everything she's reported. The Players' Union has pushed back on this dynamic too. After the Carrington questioning, the WNBA Players Association released a statement defending its members against what it called irresponsible media coverage, saying flatly that the union calls BS on the way some of these narratives get built. That's not a small thing. It means the tension in this story isn't only between the league office and Caitlin Clark's supporters. It's a three-way tug of war between the league trying to manage its image, a press corps trying to cover its biggest story, and a locker room that increasingly feels like it's being used as a prop in an argument it never agreed to have. Now, to be fair to the other side of this, not everyone agrees with Brennan. Plenty of people inside and around the league argue that any kind of formal Clark rules treating one player differently in how she's promoted or protected would be legitimately unfair to a locker room full of other talented professionals who also deserve recognition. That's a real defensible position. This isn't a case where there's one obvious villain. It's a genuine tension between growing the league as fast as possible and not alienating the players who built it before Clark ever arrived. The numbers behind the noise. Here's the part that makes every single controversy you just heard about so much harder to walk away from. In Clark's rookie season, national WNBA viewership on ESPN jumped 462% compared to the year before. A single regular season Fever game against the Phoenix Mercury averaged 1.9 million viewers and peaked at 2.7 million. Her playoff exit against Connecticut set the all-time cable viewership record for the league. League-wide merchandise sales rose more than 500%, with player-specific merchandise, led overwhelmingly by Clark, surging by roughly 1,000%. An economic analysis out of Indiana University found that Clark alone accounted for something close to 26.5% of the entire league's economic activity in her rookie year, an estimated $875 million impact, with researchers projecting she could push past $1 billion the following season. In 2024, the WNBA signed an 11-year, $2.2 billion media rights deal with Disney, NBC Universal, and Amazon, more than tripling the league's previous annual media revenue. Nobody inside that negotiation seriously disputes that the audience Clark built was central to making that number possible. Team salary caps under the league's new agreement are set to jump from roughly $1.5 million to $7 million per team. And when the Las Vegas Aces sold out their 12,000-seat arena for a game against the Fever, they didn't just accept the sellout. They moved the entire game to an 18,000-seat arena normally used for UFC events, just to meet demand. The league itself has been expanding to try to capture more of this moment, adding the Golden State Valkyries as an expansion franchise in 2025, its first new team since 2008, with Toronto and Portland set to follow. None of that expansion happens without the financial case Clark's rookie season made to ownership groups and media partners in the first place. However you feel about every controversy in this video, none of those numbers are in dispute. Nobody in the league office argues with them, which is exactly what makes every hesitation, every awkward answer, every missed call that much harder to make sense of. How she's handled all of it. Through every bit of this, the person at the center of it has said remarkably little. Back in her rookie season, after the first wave of hard, uncalled fouls started piling up, Clark was asked directly how she was processing the physicality. Her answer was simple. She said she knew she was going to take a couple of hard shots a game, and that's just what it is. She wasn't going to let it bother her. That's been the pattern ever since. She doesn't call out officials by name. She doesn't publicly weigh in on the commissioner's comments about race and rivalry, or on Brennan's book, or on whether she thinks the league protects her enough. She plays, she produces the numbers, and she leaves the arguing to everyone else: coaches, journalists, senators, message boards. Whatever you think about how the league has handled her, it's hard to find a single moment where Clark herself has thrown gasoline on any of this. Why this matters beyond one player. Here's something worth sitting with before we wrap up, because it puts everything you've just heard in a different light. Every major professional sport has, at some point, been reshaped by a single transcendent star, and in every one of those cases, the league's job was simple. Get out of the way and let that star pull the whole sport forward. Nobody in the NBA in the 1990s worried that Michael Jordan was too big for the league. They built the entire television and marketing strategy around him, and the other 29 franchises rode the wave he created. The same is true across other sports, in other eras, with other singular talents. The pattern is always the same. A generational player arrives, drags a much larger audience in behind them, and that larger audience sticks around long enough to fall in love with the sport itself, not just the one player who introduced them to it. The WNBA has, by its own numbers, experienced exactly that kind of moment. And yet, again and again, in the specific decisions we've walked through, the instinct from parts of the league's leadership hasn't been to lean all the way in. It's been to hedge, to redirect, to spread the credit, to introduce complicated framing into a story that, commercially speaking, should have been simple. Where this leaves everyone. Caitlin Clark is currently in her third professional season, putting up career-best numbers, over 21 points a game, more than 8 assists, appearing in the vast majority of Indiana's games after an injury-shortened second year. The league she plays in just locked in a television deal and a salary structure built substantially on the audience she generated. And she is still, 3 seasons in, the player officials seem to catch a beat too late. The player whose biggest controversies keep needing a commissioner's clarification or a journalist's book to fully surface. None of this proves a conspiracy. What it proves is something arguably more interesting. A league trying to hold two things at once that don't always fit together. Protecting the ecosystem of players who built the WNBA for decades, while fully embracing the one player who just rewired its entire financial future in under 3 years. Whether the WNBA can hold both of those things at the same time, or whether it keeps fumbling the handoff between them, is the question that's going to define this league for the rest of the decade. And the next time a hard foul goes uncalled, live, in front of the record crowds now watching, is the moment that question gets asked all over again. Let me know in the comments which part of this surprised you the most, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.